think most of you know that Bonnie and I are living on the Baker farm. That's where we're living right now, on the Baker farm. Now, I've never lived on a farm before. This is my first experience living on a farm. Bonnie has it. Bonnie grew up on a farm. She's a farm girl. But this is a new experience for me, being on the farm. But it's a good experience. I'm having a lot of fun on the farm. I've learned to do some things on the farm that you can't do if you're living in the city. The other night, Bonnie and I took a long walk way out into that acreage. There's a pond. And so as we were walking to the pond, we saw a deer out grazing. Then we got to the pond and we saw bluegills swimming around in the pond. Frogs, a lot of frogs out there in the pond, jumping into the water and swimming. And we saw a hawk just kind of floating around up there. You can do things like that when you're on the farm. One night I forgot something out in the car. I needed it. So I went out and got it in my underwear. You can do that on the farm. And Jim doesn't know this, Fritz doesn't know this, but right now I'm making a corn maze in their back field. And I'm knocking down stalks of corn right and left, and I've got half this corn. Just kidding. I'm not really knocking down corn stalks. I'm not making them. Just wanted to see if Fritz and Jim were listening. And they are. You can do things on the farm that you can't do in the city. And one of the things I like about being on a farm is that you're close to nature. You're close to nature. And Bonnie and I are privileged enough that we're soon going to be able to do that where we're going to move to. Up there in the Chippewa National Forest. Close to nature. Now, those of you who do live in the country, or those of you who live on a farm, know what I'm talking about. It's different. When you brush shoulders so often with Mother Earth. And as you begin to brush shoulders with Mother Earth, you begin to appreciate more and more the meticulous nature that God used to create this wonderful playground called Earth. It's a wonderful playground that God has given us. Now, when God gave us this gift, He gave us this gift with the expectation of caring for it. So that future generations can enjoy the playground that we've inherited. But it's a challenge. Please hear that. It is a challenge to care for this world that God has so carefully shaped and given to us. There are all kinds of economic issues and all kinds of social issues that impact the world and impact our lives. And somehow we have to balance these economic and social issues with the care of the world. And that's hard. I mean, we've got to look at things like pipelines and fracking, nuclear storage sites, and sometimes sewage waste dumps, and we have to look at forestation. All these kinds of issues. They impact the world, but they also impact us personally, economically, socially, and so it's a delicate balance to not have too much of a financial crunch in our lives, or too much of a social issue crunch in our lives, and yet care for the world. But I think we're doing it. I think we're making progress in keeping this balance, caring the world without going bankrupt doing it, and keeping that balance. And we need to continue to do so in the future. And again, we need to do that because that's one of our reasons for living. We've talked about 3 reasons up to this point why God made us. If you forgot, look on the cover of the bulletin. Those 3 reasons are there. And today we look at that 4th reason, caring for this world. Again, God didn't place us here so we could just be takers. God placed us here for a variety of reasons, and one of the reasons is that we can do our part to help care for this wonderful world that God has given us. Now, ironically, 2,000 years ago, Paul realized this purpose about caring for the world. And so he tried to bring forth this issue as he wrote the church in Rome. And he talks about creation, even then, groaning under decay. Even in Paul's world, as Paul looked at his world, he could see that people were not caring for the world the way they should be. And so he tries to remind the church at Rome about this responsibility. Paul knows that as people of faith, we have to utilize our choices in a wise way so that we liberate the world from a lot of the decay that is taking place. And again, this mindset of caring for our world went all the way back to our passage of Scripture in Genesis, where the writer there reminds us that when God created the world, He gave the world under the leadership of people. You are to fill it. You are to subdue it. But when God said subdue it, I don't think He had in mind abusing it. I don't think God had in mind, doing whatever you want with the world, regardless of the consequences. I think when God told created life, man, you are to subdue the world. You are to control it in a responsible way. Now, over the years, the church hasn't been very vocal and helpful in caring for this world. Like society, the church has kind of just hitched its wagon to the train of just use the world without thinking about what that means for future generations. But in about the last 30 or 40 years, things are changing. And as Christians, we're starting to realize that we do have a responsibility, one that we as a church in general forgot about. And so we're trying, as Christians, I hope all of us, to do our part to keep our world a beautiful place. Now there's a number of ways that we can do this, but very quickly I just want to share with you once again the 4 R's as a way of taking care of our world. Now hopefully you all know what the 4 R's are. The 4 R's are reduce, reuse, recycle, refuse. Reduce. Reduce your energy consumption. We can all do that. You know, if we all just turned our hot water heaters down 2 degrees, we'd save a ton of energy. That would help our pocketbooks out a little bit. But it helps our world out. We just turn our hot water heater down 2 degrees. A lot of our hot water heaters are way too hot. Don't need to heat that water up that high, 145 degrees. We can come down to 140. Easy. Taking light bulbs, incandescent light bulbs, and replacing them with energy-efficient light bulbs. Reduces energy. Saves us in the pocket. Oh yes, there's a little more output to use those new energy-efficient light bulbs. But they supposedly last for 20 or 30 years. And the incandescent light bulbs don't. So we do that. A lot of us jump in our car and we'll drive 2 blocks. We're using energy. We could walk those 2 blocks and be a lot healthier for us. Most of the time, when my mom was in that apartment complex, I walked. Once in a while, we'll get in the car, drive a little bit, but most of the time I walk. There's all kinds of ways that we can reduce. When I first came to this church, potlucks, friendship hour, fellowship hour, styrofoam was always used, always used. And those nice china plates sat in storage. And so I suggested, let's start using it. Well, it's a little more work. Yes. So I'll do my share and wash the dishes. But we help Mother Earth by not using as much styrofoam. And right now we're about half. Half the time we use styrofoam, half the time we don't use the good dishes. There's work for us to do to get that styrofoam use down even further. Because you see, it's going to take one styrofoam plate over 200 years to degrade. And it takes regular plates a lot less than that. And they break and are disposed of. And if we use paper plates, those paper plates only take 12 years. And then they're gone. Every styrofoam plate, 200 years, it's still here in some landfill. Reduce. Reuse. That's another thing that we can do, is reuse things. Something breaks, we just toss it. Well, it might be able to be fixed. And sometimes if we fix that item, it is less than buying new. Not always though, I know that. Sometimes it's more expensive to fix than buying new, and so yes, it makes financial sense then to toss it. And I've done that. But if I can fix something and it's cheaper than buying new, I'm going to fix it. And I might have to wait a week before I get it back, but that's okay. Because the more we reuse things, the better it is for Mother Earth. The landfill just isn't quite as full if we're reusing things. American Baptist women know about the importance of reusing things. How do they know about that? Well, they take all those worn out sheets that could be tossed, but they reuse them. They make them into bandages. And the bandages then go overseas, making a difference. So before you toss those old sheets, think about the American Baptist women, burn them here. Because they're reusing. The more we can reuse, the better it is. Recycling, that's the third R of ours. I think we're all pretty much doing what we can there. And we should be. Recycling as much as possible. It's amazing the things that they're creating now out of things that we used to just dump. But if we take to a recycling center, they can make stuff out of that. Dave Stedman's is involved in a company that's making linoleum out of all kinds of plastic things that normally are just getting dumped. And now this company is involved in is taking all this stuff and they're making it into linoleum. It's a good use of recycling. And finally, refuse. Refuse to use chemicals that you know will not help Mother Earth. Refuse to use cleaning materials and supplies in your house that are not recyclable, that are not biodegradable. Refuse to buy styrofoam. Perhaps maybe the church needs to go more paper than styrofoam. Refuse those things that will hurt Mother Earth. On the whole, though, I think most of us are probably trying to do the very best that we can, be good stewards of the land. And I would encourage you to continue that, and if you know you could do better, then please do better, because one of the reasons why God made you was to be a good steward of this world, of the land, of the soil, of the atmosphere, so that other generations can know this wonderful playground that we currently know. The last thing I quickly share with you this morning is learn. Learn all that you can about being a good steward. There's all kinds of videos, there's websites.